Messi. Surging forward with real menace here. Brilliant from Messi. Oh, what a goal that is!
Saya Shahril bin Arsat, bekas pemain bola sepak Selangor, dan sekarang anda sedang bersama saya The Bola Bola Show.
Merah kuning lambang kebanggaan, Selangor merancang kejayaan, gemuruh sorakan menggegarkan, cabaran disambut dengan kesungguhan, kecemerlangan.
Welcome to another episode of the Bola Bola Show. My name is Bala and I'll be the host for today together with my best friend Elvin and Sivan. Before I introduce Sivan to the show, let me remind you, please be safe, stay at home, and if you need to go out, please wear your mask. Kita jaga kita, alright?
Oh yeah.
All right.
Without further ado, Elvin, how is it going?
Yes, Bala, going fine. Wow, Bala. Thanks for the kita jaga kita message. Very good. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. And of course,
And
Sivan. Yep.
Yep.
Yes. And just a reminder, everyone, kita jaga kita. You know, as you all know, it's still not over yet. The fight against this pandemic is not over yet. It's far from over. We still have to maintain social distancing. Wear masks, sanitize ourselves, keep things clean. So all these are still very, very important. So, guys, what's the topic of today?
Selangor.
So what do you guys remember about Selangor, during the 90s?
Well, for me personally, when I think of Selangor in the 90s, I think of Manchester United in the 90s. Big club, big fan base, really the club that really was pushing every boundaries, making big signings, I mean, they were basically, they were not the Red Giants just by name. They lived it like the Red Giants. I mean, you had an 80,000 capacity stadium, which, these days is hardly any team can fill in. But those days, Selangor, easily on a weekday fixture, 50,000. The weekend, I don't have to say much. I mean, that's what I can say about Selangor during those days.
For me, it's basically because I was representing Selangor in Taekwondo, so I was having a special feeling for that as a home team. But I remember one of the days when they were doing opening ceremony for Raka Muda in 1996. So I was one of the few selected to do a show. So one of the venues I think was in the Shalam Stadium to do a trial. So that was a magnificent sight to behold until now. It's a good memory for me.
Yeah, fantastic indeed. And as for me, what I remember most about Selangor is during the early 90s and all that, I used to listen to Selangor games on Radio Shah Alam. Okay, I used to have that radio, and we used to pull the antenna as far as possible, and tune into Radio Shah Alam to listen to all the Selangor games on radio. And it was very interesting because I remember there was one game, if I'm not mistaken, Selangor beat Terengganu 7-1 in Stadium Sultan Nasaruddin in Kuala Terengganu. It was a long time ago, and that was one fantastic game that I remember. Okay, so you guys might be wondering why Selangor. Well, today, it's a very special episode. Hari ini adalah lagi satu episode yang istimewa, guys. Sebab kita dekat The Bola Bola Show dapat berjaya mendapat dua bekas pemain Selangor menyertai show kita hari ini. Pertama sekali, kita mengalu-alukan beliau merupakan midfield dynamo dan enjin untuk skuad Selangor pada tahun 1995 hingga 98, dan beliau memakai jersey nombor 7. Selamat datang Abang Shahril Arsat. Apa khabar bang?
Khabar baik.
Ya.
Khabar baik.
Bagus abang, bagus, welcome on board. So sekarang abang tengah terlibat dalam projek apa bang?
Buat masa ni banyak dalam domestik, dan saya dengan dia Gombak District.
Okay.
So banyak perancangan untuk development dan juga first team untuk Gombak lah.
Okay, bagus.
Dan terlibat dalam Liga Super Selangor FA.
Alright. So, Sivan, what about our second guest?
Okay, our second guest is none other than the man that every Selangor fans will always remember, the hero of the 1995 Malaysia Cup final, the first ever golden goal scored in the Malaysia Cup final, none other than Dato' David Mitchell. Welcome on board, sir.
Welcome. Thanks for inviting me. And yeah, it was great memories indeed.
All right, all right. And what are you involved these days, Mr. David, if you don't mind asking?
Yeah, look, I'm involved with the local football club here. I'm do some consultant work and advising, which includes an A-League club that I'm looking at getting involved with, trying to sell to some Europeans and some Koreans that are interested also. The good thing about that is it's Central Coast Mariners, and they have land and they have the club as well. So it fits in quite well. So that's my interests, and I still do have my pro license coaching badge, and I do regular seminars with that as well. So I keep in touch with a lot of things, and yeah, I'm doing also a concussion thing about heading, because it's becoming very topical in the world, and I'm doing a study with a neuroscience doctor and a physiotherapist, and trying to do something with the FFA, because you know, a lot of countries are trying to ban it, but I think that we should be taught how to head the ball, and then once you're taught how to head the ball with a softer ball, then you can be taught with a proper ball, and then it's a lot more safer. So they're the things I'm involved with at the time.
Okay. I see. All right.
So yeah, a lot of people want to ban the concussion, so it's better that you get taught how to head it, because no one gets taught how to head the ball properly from a young age.
Okay. Something interesting going on here. Okay.
Yeah. So interesting, very much so.
Right. Okay, Abang Shahril, boleh
Ya,
Abang Shahril cerita tentang latar belakang karier bola sepak abang sebelum menyertai pasukan Selangor?
Oh, sebelum ke selepas tu.
Sebelum menyertai pasukan Selangor.
Okey, saya berasal daripada Melaka. Dan pengalaman pertama bermain untuk negeri adalah di Melaka bawah 12 tahun. Jadi selepas tu saya pindah ke Kuala Lumpur bersama keluarga. Jadi dalam tempoh saya di sekolah menengah, saya tak melibatkan diri dalam bola sepak. Saya lebih pada hoki sampai ke state level lah masa tu. Jadi pasal minat tu masih ada, jadi peluang saya nak mencuba dalam bola sepak masa tu bila form 5 saya pergi try untuk under 21 masa tu. Of course lah, susah nak dapat kan. Jadi di situ mungkin ada coach-coach yang ada kat situ berminat, dan dia kenalkan saya dengan satu kelab di Kampung Baru, kelab Sultan Sulaiman. Dari situlah saya bermula lah bola sepak saya. Dan untuk pasukan Selangor di bawah umur 18 tahun masa tu, Piala Razak tahun 1989. Dan seterusnya ke Piala Presiden, dan tahun 93 baru diserapkan dalam pasukan utama, tapi masih lagi belum mendapat peluang dalam pasukan utama. Boleh fahamlah pada tahun 90-an Selangor kebanyakan semua dalam barisan pemain adalah pemain kebangsaan. Jadi memang tough untuk saya jugalah untuk merebut tempat. Selepas tahun 94 tu baru saya dapat peluang untuk bermain dalam pasukan utama. Dan dari situlah saya teruskan perjalanan bola sepak saya sebagai pemain profesional sepenuh masa lah.
Okay. Well, Dato' David, I mean, you were considered among the first pioneers of Aussie players to have a career in Europe. I mean, what was it like during those days, being an Australian in Europe?
Yeah, well, it was difficult because you had to break the door down, because it was unusual, as you mentioned, about Australian players playing in Europe. You know, they used to call you the Kangaroo and the Skippy and all sorts of different names, and
Okay.
you know, you had to gain their respect. And when you went to training, they weren't going to just lie over for you, because you had to gain their respect. So they do, if you had a possession game, say 5 against 5 in a possession game, every time you got the ball was when it was a bad ball, and the ball would be around your neck, and they'd come in and tackle you quite hard, and they wouldn't want you to really succeed because you're actually going to take one of their positions. So it was very difficult, but once you overcome that, and then you could actually show that you could play, then and then getting a contract was one of the proudest moments from growing up in Australia and being a grassroots player here. then making it through playing for the state team and the national team, and then finally making it as a professional football club for the Glasgow Rangers, which was very proud because they're a big club, and it was a great moment for me. And my first game was against Celtic at Parkhead, so an unbelievable experience.
Interesting. So, Dato' David, you had an awesome experience, playing against Diego Maradona in a World Cup qualifier in 1994. So, what was it like coming face to face with him?
Yeah, obviously he's quite small, huh? So he's but I mean he was without doubt the best player in the world that era in the 90s and the 80s and 90s. He was just superb, and you just look at the guy. And people say today that Messi and Ronaldo are better than him, and I said, well, if he was in today's situation where they had the health concerns and you were looked after, he'd be as good, every bit as good as, because he was a sort of player that went to Italy and made an average team club champions of Italy, which was massive. There wasn't a big Italian club that he went to, as in Juventus or the AC Milan or Inter Milan. He went to Napoli, and he made Napoli the league champions of Italy, which was a phenomenal place. The whole place just took off with him, and that's the sort of impact he had. But he was a great player. But at that particular time, Argentina he'd just come back. He wasn't in the side, but he'd just come back into the side. And then when I come off the bench to play against him, obviously he was, you could just see he was a class act. And we had a man-to-man marking him so that to stop him getting the ball and being creative. So it was, it was a great experience, obviously, to see the man himself. Probably not the best professional, you would say, but as in health style, lifestyle, things like that. Today a lot of players that's rammed into them. So, but it's given the players a lot longer to play as well. So, but yeah, phenomenal player.
All right. So, so our listeners, this brings us to the end of our first part of the show. And after this, we'll be back again and we will discuss the glory days of Selangor in the 1995 season onwards. Stay tuned.
Joseph Biskic akan mengambil sepakan ini. Bola menolak berlaku. Dan itu dia. Selangor Darul juara dan hil Piala Malaysia. David Mitchell menjaringkan gol kemenangan. Pemain-pemain Pahang tunduk layu. Mereka tidak percaya.
Okey, Abang Shahril. So, Abang Shahril, apakah target pasukan Selangor untuk menghadapi musim tahun 1995? Sebab lama juga gegasi Merah Kuning tak menjuari sebarang piala masa tu, hampir 10 tahun semenjak dia punya last Piala Malaysia pada tahun 86. So, apakah target pasukan Selangor, bang, masa tu?
Oh, okey. Tahun 93 di mana saya bersama tim, masa tu Selangor di Division 2 saya, Division 2. So masa tu Datuk Aini baru bersama dengan pasukan Selangor. Saya rasa memang matlamat pertama dia akan cuba untuk kembali balik kepada Division 1. Dan tahun 94 tu jadi plan saya rasa Selangor masa tu ada long term plan lah. Dan dalam masa 2-3 tahun tu memang dia expect untuk kita akan menjadi sesuatu akan menjadilah daripada pasukan. Tapi rasanya dalam perancangan tu awal kita dah dapat berjaya untuk menjuarai Piala Malaysia. Dalam masa sama kita dapat banyak bakat-bakat pemain bakat muda yang naik daripada peringkat umur. Dalam masa sama juga mereka berjaya bersama pasukan Selangor untuk menjuarai Piala Malaysia pada tahun 95. 94 kita kurang bernasib baik bila kita kalah dengan semi-final dengan Singapura. Jadi di situ saya nampak dalam tim Selangor memang untuk tempoh yang lama memang akan something lah untuk mencapai satu kejayaan. Di situ setiap tahun kita ada target, mungkin Piala Malaysia, Piala Sponsor, lepas tu Piala FA. Dan dalam masa sama juga dalam tempoh 5 tahun saya bersama Selangor, saya rasa semua piala tu kita dapat.
Hmm.
Jadi memang target kita tak adalah untuk mencapai semua piala dalam masa 1 tahun, tapi rasanya kalau benda tu menjadi tak ada masalah kan. Jadi masa tu Piala Malaysia bagi saya memang satu, orang kata satu piala yang betul-betul orang kata jadi rebutan lah. Itu memang you dapat Piala Malaysia, you dah jadi kira dah satu matlamat you untuk satu season tu dah kira sukses lah.
Dan Abang Shahril nak tanya jugalah, kali pertama masa Selangor main di Stadium Shah Alam, sebab sebelum tu kalau tak silap main di Stadium Merdeka. Apakah perasaan masa tu bila dapat satu home ground sendiri dengan orang kata kepadatan 80,000 penyokong? Apa perasaan macam tu?
Dah tentu kita rasa macam satu, boleh dikatakan kita boleh rasa satu kebanggaan lah untuk kita boleh rasa gah sikit kat situ sebab kita dah ada satu stadium yang begitu besar kapasiti penonton dia. Dan dalam masa sama juga masa tempoh itu kita dapat penyokong yang begitu ramai Selangor.
Ya,
saya rasa kalau Selangor memang setiap game tak lari lah berapa 20-30 ribu ke atas lah saya rasa setiap game, walaupun game-game tu tak berapa, bukan kata tak menarik, tapi sebenarnya memang time tu semuanya menarik. You tak kira tim mana pun mesti penonton akan datang. Dan kemeriahan ni bukan di stadium saja, sebelum perlawanan pun di jalan raya pun kita boleh nampakkan full colour merah kuning kat jalan raya. So saya rasa kita sendiri pun sebagai pemain memang teruja jugalah dengan suasana tu, dan memang kita nakkan something dalam padang, memang nak menang, betul nak tunjukkan sesuatu yang memang kita patut berada di situ, kita nak puaskan hati peminat di situ. Kita memang rasa macam bila you main dalam satu stadium yang penuh dengan peminat dan berpuluh ribu dan maksimum sampai 80, saya rasa pada satu masa lawan Kedah saya rasa melebihi kapasiti yang ada kat stadium, 90,000 saya rasa dalam, di luar lagi. Dari situ memang teruja sangatlah. Memang kita patut ada penonton macam tu bila stadium kita besar.
Ya, betul. Okay, Dr. David, early 1995, you were still based in England with Millwall. I mean, what made you decide that you wanted to come to Malaysia and join Selangor? Was there anything to do with Alistair Edward moving the other way around?
No, not really. What happened? I got a call when my contract was coming to an end, and I was starting to negotiate with Millwall for another year. And then this offer came out the blue from Selangor, and it was a scenario where I spoke to Alistair about it because he came to Millwall at the time, and yeah, he said, look, Selangor's a big club, and coming from England, going there, it'll be a big thing for the club that they've signed a player like such as you. So he thought that it was a great opportunity, and I thought, well, going back into Asia before going back to Australia, I was thinking of probably more Japan than I was more than Malaysia, because Japanese league had just started, and it was they were having a lot of popular players coming from all around the world. But so it was Selangor, and the offer was quite good, and it was on the way home, and I thought, well, 2 years in Selangor and then make my way back to Australia, which is virtually how it played out, really. Not knowing much about the club initially, but then obviously read up about Malaysia, about the lifestyle, and it was everything that I read and saw, because there was no internet at the time, was all positive, really. So and I had a really good time there, and when I came, bit difficult to settle in at first because of the weather, but after that it was fine.
Okay, Dr. David, you actually remind me of Batista when he newly transferred to Italy, where he adapted and settled the team very easily. So, what is your motivation factor, or what made you to adapt to the environment easily? Is it because of the Australian players available like Mehmet Durakovic and Josip Biskic?
Well, that was easy because they were there, and Ken Warden had coached in Australia before as well. So you were sort of familiar with the club, and you heard it was a big club. So we were all living in the one same area. So in Shah Alam, in the nice apartments that we had, PKNS that built. So we were staying there, and it was near the stadium. It was quite near the training ground. So everything was good. So that was easy for them being there and settling with them. Yeah, for sure. So it was nice to have some local Australians there play when you went back. I knew Mehmet obviously from the Socceroo camp, but I hadn't met Joe before. And Joe was a fantastic guy as well, and he's sort of Croatian background, and so is my wife. So it was good. They all got on, and he always jokes to my wife, "Why did you marry him? You married a Scot, not a Croatian." So we always had a bit of banter like that and a bit of fun. But it was good, and the club was fantastic, I must say.
Okay, Abang Shahril, apakah first impression Abang Shahril bila hari pertama Datuk Dek Mitchell datang untuk berlatih bersama pasukan Selangor?
Okay, masa tu saya rasa memang kita mempunyai pemain-pemain import yang amat berkualiti di mana bila Mehmet ada, kita tahu memang dia memang pemain kebangsaan Australia. Lepas tu David Mitchell pemain di England, dan itu kesempatan yang kita sebagai pemain tempatan untuk mencari pengalaman yang baru daripada pemain-pemain ni. Jadi dalam masa-masa sama pun ketiga-tiga pemain import yang kita ada semua memang very friendly, very supportive, lepas tu very good player. So kita banyak belajar pada mereka. Semasa tu Joe Biscuit pun ada, dan diorang ni 3 orang ni memang saya rasa memang macam kita pun dah jadikan satu family dengan diorang lah. Memang very very good lah, very good. Dan saya suka masa-masa zaman diorang ada.
Okay.
Interesting. So Abang Shahril, apakah gol yang Abang dalam selalu ingat dan macam best goal Abang supaya dalam pasukan Selangor?
Best goal?
Yang paling special lah, yang Abang masa macam ada dia punya speciality dia lah.
Okay. Actually semua gol-gol yang saya score tu memang saya rasa memang semua yang saya buat yang terbaik lah. Saya rasa memang yang terbaik. Tapi bila you dapat score, bila time-time yang penting di mana separuh akhir lawan Perlis, di Perlis you dapat score. Lepas tu lawan tim yang bagus seperti Kedah, bila you score daripada jarak yang jauh, saya rasa memang gol-gol yang macam tu lah memang saya akan boleh sentiasa ingat lah.
And of course, for yourself, Dr. David, I mean, which was your most memorable goal when you represented Selangor? I think, we did talked about it. Was that particular goal that you will remember the most?
Yeah, just because of the sheer jubilation it gave the fans, the club, the supporters, the players, was that they hadn't won it for 9 or 10 years, I think, and they were eager to win it. And it was a scrappy goal, but I remember it being a corner and it came in and it went through everybody and it bounced, and I was just lucky I had long legs and I toe poked it in, really. So as a goal, it wasn't a great spectacular goal, but the magnitude of the goal was what was good about it, and it meant it just stopped the game altogether, and we'd won the cup, and it was fantastic atmosphere and one of the best I've had, and I've had quite a few. And also there was the financial reward, which was good, and then there was a block of land that all the players were going to get, but we never ever did get that. So still haggling over that now, funny enough. But
Okay.
From Datuani to go out and reach and get me from England to come over, I was happy to score the goal, to give him the trophy for him to hold up to all the politicians to say, well, we did the right thing, we spent the money wisely, and we won the cup, and we're champions again. So for that was very pleasing, because he was such a nice man, Datuani, and he did everything he could to help the players and be happy, So and it was a happy group of players that we played together. Everyone got on. There wasn't much, from what I knew anyway, jealousy amongst everyone. So it was quite good.
Abang Shahril, ketika Datuk David Mitchell menjadikan gol tersebut dalam Piala Malaysia Final 95, Abang Shahril masih ingat di mana abang berada ketika itu dan reaksi abang selepas tu?
Okey kita dah tahu memang golden goal baru dikenalkan di sini kan.
Ya, betul.
So memang bila David Mitchell score the goal tu, kita orang macam actually few second tu macam betul ke kita dah menang ni? Kan betul macam then bila tengok macam kena tengok keliling dulu dia betul betul lah kita menang, then baru kita celebrate dalam boleh kira lah, bukannya terus celebrate tapi macam check dulu betul ke sama ada betul ke dia dah menang ni, then semua berlari lah masa tu. Memang kita lah you tahulah kan berapa lama Selangor tak dapat pegang piala dalam masa 9-10 tahun tu. So inilah first piala yang kita tunggu berapa lama dapat. Saya rasa memang orang kata memang menakjubkan.
Okay, and also during that campaign, so ini soalan, actually this question is for both of you all. So the question is, was there any moment that both of you all want to share with our listener, that anything funny happened during the 1995 campaign, like maybe for David and Abang Shahril, ada apa-apa detik lucu yang berlaku masa tu yang boleh share? Yeah.
Lama ni nak ingat ni, lama sangat. Datuk David, you can
David, was there any funny moment that happened during that campaign?
There was it was a great time. The boys were doing well, were playing well. Everyone was nervous about winning the cup, and all the fans' anticipation was just a great time to be at the club. And there's nothing really funny that sticks out in my mind. We always played some cranks, amongst each other. With Joe Biskich. Joe was a really lovely man, but he could be angry sometimes. You know what I mean? So I know we used to play some jokes on with Joe a couple of times. But he'd turn around and say, "What are you talking about? You're a Scottish guy. You can't play football." So, but he was So it was good. So there was nothing I can't remember off the top of my head.
Okay.
But look, there was times when I think Mehmet and myself, when we actually got win bonuses, we used to actually give it to charity a little bit to some people, So that was always nice. And we had some good bankers that we had at the time as well when we were there, who became a very good friend, and I still have contact with him up today, actually. So so it's good. Lots of good memories.
Who actually was controlling the dressing room? Beside Ken Warden.
Yeah, Ken. Look, Ken was a bit of a funny character. Ken, really, he was. He was with the best club, and he got all the best players. And Ken was one about. He used to call about mark and pinch. So he sort of didn't let players really express themselves. He was sort of more as a defensive coach, and then we win the ball, we counter attack. But he was successful. So. I know a lot of players didn't particularly like his style of football, but when you're successful, you go along with it. And that's what we did.
Okay, itu Abang Shahril. Berbanding dengan final 95 dan 96, mana yang paling paling nervous lah, sebab saya tahu 96 pun masih dalam golden goal rule, cuma tak ada jaringan dan terus ke penalti. So yang mana yang abang rasa macam memang nervous lah tu abang?
Saya pun tak tahu macam mana nak cakap, tapi saya rasa memang dua-dua final tu berbeza tim kan. So Sabah dengan dia punya kekuatan, Sabah punya strength memang berbeza. Lepas tu kalau Pahang ni memang player dia bagus-bagus daripada very skillful player dalam tim Pahang. Jadi saya rasa suasana tu memang berbeza lah. Tapi untuk lawan ke Sabah, tak rasa saya memang game tu saya rasa non-stop player berlari lah. Sampai ke 120 minit, sampai ke penalti. Saya rasa lagi tough lah masa tu. Dia bukan tough apa, kita main dengan player yang very semangat yang tinggi kan. Dengan strong, dia punya strength yang kuat. Yang rasanya lagi tough untuk kita main. Dengan Pahang lebih pada individu Lepas tu kita pun kenal masa tu faham punya player-player yang serangan yang baik. Very skill, setiap individu very skillful lah. Masa tu Dolak Saleh dan Abidin kan, dia ada pemain import daripada Argentina masa tu. Lepas tu tak silap saya Janjung pun ada, Janjung masa tu.
Yang saya ingat Igor Shukrin.
Iko Shukrin.
Yes.
Argentina Jose Riati tak silap saya. Yang Jung defend.
Okay.
Kita macam saya masa tu memang young player memang yang pemain yang muda dalam tim. Saya rasa memang kita memang luar jangkaan lah bila kita dapat pamerkan satu permainan yang baik lah untuk tim.
Okay. Right. So with that said, we will end this episode, and coming up next, we will talk into more about what was the coaching and management philosophy like of Selangor during that particular era. So stay tuned.
Untuk menggelecek Anwar Abu Bakar. Shahril Arsat. Satu peluang terbuka. Dan itu dia gol yang kedua untuk pasukan Selangor. Ahmad Sobri tertewas lagi. Dua kali penjaga gol yang berusia 33 tahun ini terpaksa mengutip bola dalam gawang sendiri. Shahril Arsat, rempatannya sukar untuk ditampan, ditangkap ataupun ditepis oleh Ahmad Sobri.
Okay, Abang Shahril, apa pendapat Abang mengenai kejayaan yang dibawa oleh Dato' Aini Taib kepada pasukan Selangor ketika 3 Piala Malaysia dimenangi berturut-turut?
Di zaman Dato' Aini tu generasi emas lah untuk pasukan Selangor. Bukanlah kita kata nafikan yang sebelum-sebelum ni, tapi bila kita masuk ke generasi yang baru tu, di mana dalam masa 5 tahun, saya rasa 93 sampai 97, betul-betul kita punya satu pasukan yang dalam satu, orang kata satu unit lah. Kita dalam, bukan persahabatan pemain tu bukan saja di dalam padang, tapi di luar pun kita very close actually. Dalam macam tadilah, kalau situasi yang dikata macam mana, apa yang betul-betul you buat tak boleh lupa masa zaman tu, saya rasa you serius dalam padang, betul-betul serius, tapi bila you keluar padang saja you jadi macam bukan you sebagai pemain bola, you sebagai satu family yang besar. Memang menakjubkan masa tu. Jadi kita pasal tu memori kat situ dalam hubungan tu sampai sekarang kita tak boleh nak lupakan. Kita jumpa yang macam saya masa tu memang pemain yang muda. Kita mempunyai pemain sini yang berbeza 8 tahun, 10 tahun masa tu, sampai sekarang masih close lah sebenarnya. Dan pemilihan pemain masa zaman tu pun saya rasa amat baik, semua dengan sokongan peminat yang besar. Saya rasa membuatkan satu lagi dorongan masa tu untuk kita lebih maju ke depan masa tu.
So Abang Shahril, masa tu bila Dato' Aini bawa dia punya management, adakah Dato' Aini sendiri datang involve dalam mana-mana coaching punya matter, atau dia tinggalkan semua kepada Coach Ken?
Tak. Dia tak ada involve dalam dalam tim lah, dalam pemain punya pemilihan atas saya. Tapi semua masa tu saya lihat semua di bawah jurulatih lah masa tu, Ken Warden dan seterusnya, siapa. Jadi masa tu memang saya rasa masalah-masalah yang lain yang orang kata dalam bentuk yang mengganggu pasukan tu saya kata tak ada. Masa tu memang dalam pengurusan pun memang diorang pun bekerja untuk tim. Kita memang jaranglah timbulkan masalah-masalah yang pelik-pelik. Saya rasa memang player masa tu datang training pun memang untuk main bola. Memang datang awal. Kadang saya pun masa tu bila fikirkan balik, 1 jam sebelum pun player dah datang lah tempat training. Jadi,
memang bersemangat lah 1 jam lebih.
Bukan player sendiri, kita sebagai player pun memang nak ke padang. Memang nak main bola. Apalagi kalau game, memang kita nak menang. Kita draw pun kita dah frust. Apalagi kalau kalah.
So memang winning mentality lah. Itu memang.
Dan sememangnya kejayaan Selangor ketika itu sinonim dengan jurulatih Ken Warden. Boleh abang cerita sikit pasal beliau sebagai seorang jurulatih, macam apakah filosofi beliau atau strategi beliau?
Okey, dia menggunakan kita sebagai orang Malaysia. Dia tahu kita punya peranan orang Malaysia ni macam mana, attitude dia, macam mana dia nak push kita sebagai supaya kita tak leka. Lepas tu Ken Warden memang kalau dalam training dia memang dia akan tekan player ni, orang kata tak semua orang boleh terima lah sebenarnya. Bila tough jugalah dia punya training. Lepas tu dengan cara dia penyampaian, dengan mulut dia bercakap, so kita memang you kena mental you kena kuat. Itu biasa sampai mana-mana pun kita kena terima. Kita nak jadi pemain, kita kena terima lah apa yang diarahkan dan apa yang dia hendak kita buat. Walaupun kadang situasi tu bukan favourite kita untuk main bola ataupun training, tapi kita kena terima lah cabaran dia. Macam saya sendiri, kalau ikutkan saya, posisi asas saya memang di midfield. Sepanjang saya bermain bola, memang midfield lah tempat saya. Tapi pertama kali saya masuk dalam pasukan utama, Ken Warden letak saya left back. Jadi kat situ berbesar cabaran saya masa tu. Jadi kalau saya nak ambil peluang, saya main. Saya turun, saya terima cabaran tu, saya main left back. Dan game pertama saya pun bukan di Shah Alam. Game pertama saya di Kota Baru, lawan Kelantan. You sebagai pemain yang baru masuk dalam team dan first time, first 11, then you kena main away lawan tim Kelantan. Memang kita tahu masa tu Kelantan memang tough dari segi apa pun. You memang kena prepare mental betul-betul. Dan kat situ, tapi saya sebenarnya saya bersyukur lah sebab peluang saya dapat, saya ambil, dan kat situ saya dapat tunjukkan kepercayaan kepada coach dan pemain-pemain lain dan pemain-pemain sendiri lain. Jadi daripada situ bermula saya dalam tim pasukan utama Selangor.
Yeah, I just want to check with Dato' David. Shahril was mentioning that to work with Ken Warden is a kind of challenge. In fact, you just earlier mentioned about it as well. What is it maybe in terms of with his man management with his players and the relationship with players? How does Ken Warden approach his style?
Well, I don't think Ken was very sort of sympathetic to players. You know what I mean? So he used, I'd come from a professional background, obviously, playing in Germany, playing in Holland, in Scotland, and being in England for so many years, and then coming to Malaysia, where Ken was very demanding on the Malaysian players, and which was okay. It's all right to play a demanding game is okay, but it was all about, everything was the same. Like I said, he didn't let players express themselves. It was always about running and closing people down and tackling and not express himself and win the ball and then play it forward. So it was difficult to enjoy your training and enjoy your time in that sense. And I don't think his man management was that good. So, but he had a lot of good players, and like I said, the people around the club, Dato' Aini was one, and obviously, you're is it the chairman or the CEO now of FAM? Hamadad was also one of the young supporters there, or young guys there at the club. He was very good. So there was a lot of good people in and around the club, and the club, had everything. It had big fans, it had a big stadium, it had everything it wanted, and even to the extent when we used to win games, that Dato' Aini would also give us an extra win bonus out of his own pocket because he was so happy, So that became a regular thing. When we won a game, we'd all sing the bus. There's only one Dato' Aini in the bus, so okay, boys, I'll give you a bonus.
That will be a nice bus ride.
Yeah, so it was good. It was always, and everyone was happy because he'd go, okay, boys, coming, I pay you tomorrow. Come. So but again, it was great. But under Ken's management and style and that, it was quite difficult, I must say, and not enjoyable. But we won, so you've got to take it into the contention. But I think we could have won without doing it a better style, And that's, he had all the superstars really playing for him from Malaysia, So it was good.
Okay. So, let's look forward now to the time after Selangor. So, Dato' David, you left Selangor after winning the Malaysia Cup. So, was there any offer for you to continue to stay in Malaysia?
Well, what happened was I had another year, and there was a bit of wrangling and fighting behind the scenes because in mention it, what actually happened was the players had a meeting with Dato' Ani and they wanted Ken not to be their coach anymore.
Okay.
So we all had this meeting and we all said all the players were happy and all the Australian players didn't particularly like Ken either. So what happened, we all had a meeting and Dato was convinced to move Ken on, but then Ken went and had a private meeting with Dato and then turned it on me and said that I was the one making all the trouble and forcing everything to vote, and so get rid of him and then everyone will shut up. So that's what happened. So they ended up cutting my contract. They honored the contract because I had to.
Mm-hmm.
And so I stayed there. My girls were in school. My wife was there. So I stayed there and didn't train or play with Selangor anymore. But I still stayed in the apartments. My family were there. I saw Joe Joe left because he had to, I think they cut it down to one foreigner or something, or they had, anyway, I can't remember. But yeah, so it was strange. But that's what happened. And Ken twisted the whole thing around and I ended up getting the sack, more or less. And so I stayed there. There was a couple of offers to other clubs, but Selangor was still paying me, and if I would have went to another club, then that would have stopped. And the club that offered me the contract weren't paying me as much as Selangor. So I stayed where I was, where the girls were at school, and then just planned to leave Malaysia at the end of the year, which we did. So it was unfortunate. It was a bit of a bitter ending, but it was sort of twisted back on me because I think Ken thought I was the big fish in the club and the team and scored the goal and everything else. And if he got rid of me, then everyone would conform and come into line. So, and I think that's really what happened. So, funny ending.
Ya, Abang Shahril pula pada tahun 2002 berhijrah ke pasukan Sabah. Apa perasaan abang ketika menentang Selangor pada final Piala Malaysia tahun tersebut? Ada nostalgia ke?
Tahun 2002
ya.
Okey, saya ke Sabah pada tahun 2000 sampai 2003. Okey. Dan 2002 tu kita Sabah dengan Selangor di final kan. Jadi macam saya lah, kita pernah bermain dengan Selangor dan masa yang sama kita berlawan di peringkat akhir kan. Jadi itulah saya rasa kita macam diri saya sendiri pun saya kena tunjukkan something yang kita memang berharga juga untuk membantu mana-mana pasukan. Kan? Jadi bila kat final tu walaupun kita kalah dengan jaringan golden goal juga, jadi kat situ tapi dalam masa sama saya dapat dianugerahkan sebagai pemain terbaik final. Jadi saya rasa itu satu pencapaian juga untuk diri saya di peringkat final. Cuma tak dapat merangkul Piala Malaysia je untuk negeri Sabah. Sabah dah beberapa kali final tapi masih lagi tak dapat bawa balik Piala Malaysia. Jadi kecewa jugalah masa tu. Tapi dalam masa sama saya bangga jugalah sebab saya berjaya membawa bersama-sama pasukan sampai ke peringkat akhir tu lah.
Dan sebelum pasukan Sabah, abang main dengan pasukan Pulau Pinang kan, bersama seorang legenda pemain Selangor pada era 90-an iaitu Azmanan.
Saya last bermain dengan Selangor pada tahun 98. Adalah sedikit, ada satu isu jugalah pada tahun 98 tu. Jadi actually saya punya kontrak habis tahun 2000. Tapi 98 tu dah ada isu. Jadi tahun 98 dah memang saya dah keluar daripada Selangor. Saya berhijrah ke Penang. Masa tu bersama dengan Asmawi Bakiri, Azli Syam Ibrahim, Azman Adnan ke Penang untuk tapi setahun saja saya kat Penang dan lepas tu tahun 2000 baru saya ke Sabah.
Okay. Dan yang kita tahu pada tahun 2003 abang Shahril kembali lagi lah memenangi Piala Malaysia tetapi kali ini dengan pasukan kelab iaitu Selangor MPPJ. itu pun boleh satu detik sejarah juga dalam Piala Malaysia. So,
Oh,
apakah perasaan abang masa tu?
2003 saya di Sabah.
Oh, 2003 masih di Sabah. Belum lagi
Di Sabah,
masuk,
benar.
belum lagi main dengan Selangor PPJ lagi.
Tahun 2004 baru dengan MPPJ. Masa tu
Okey.
dengan MPPJ pun saya dapat jugalah juara Liga Perdana kan. Dapat
Okey.
dapat Sebangsih satu, dengan Liga Perdana satu, Piala Sultan Selangor satu.
I see. Okey. So selepas tu abang ke kelab mana pula tu?
Dari mana? Daripada Sabah saya MPPJ 2 tahun,
Mhm.
2004 dan 2005, lepas tu 2006 saya di Sarawak.
Okey.
Di Sarawak.
Dan
So sebelum
kalau
saya di
dan kalau tak silap zaman tu orang kata Selangor MPPJ ni macam pasukan Chelsea lah sebab mempunyai kewangan yang cukup hebat, boleh beli pemain-pemain antara terbaik di Malaysia kan.
Masa tu selepas 2005, 2006 tu baru MPPJ macam borong player lah, ramai-ramai tu yang dia anggap macam Chelsea Malaysia kan. Tapi bagi saya sebenarnya kadang ada masa tindakan macam tu pun belum tentu benda tu akan mendapat faedah yang betul kan. Belum tentu betul lagi lah apa yang kita rancang. Kita boleh lihat kadang bola ni sebenarnya bukan atas nama je sebenarnya. Kita kena ada perancangan yang betul dan pendekatan yang betul lah supaya untuk berjaya tu lah. Sebab itu saya rasa masa zaman Datuk Aini di Selangor, saya rasa pendekatan yang dibuat walaupun adalah perkara-perkara yang tu kita kena lalui juga perkara-perkara yang kita tak suka dan suka. Jadi okey, saya rasa satu zaman yang begitu cemerlang lah bersama Selangor masa tu.
Okey.
Okay, so dan akhirnya moving forward untuk pasukan Selangor. So abang Shahril, apa pasukan Selangor current punya squad yang diorang kena buat untuk compete dengan JDT lah kalau nak win balik itu league. Sudah 10 tahun tak datang menang league. So apa pendapat abang Shahril? And same thing also goes for you, Dato' David. Like what does Selangor need to do to compete back again and become strong again? So abang Shahril?
Okey, kita dah tahu sekarang ni memang zaman JDT. Dalam beberapa tahun, rasa dah lebih 5 tahun, JDT memang menguasai Liga Malaysia. Di situ kita sebenarnya kita kena ambil satu pendekatan di mana kita boleh jadikan contoh, kita tak ada masalah pun. Benda yang baik saya rasa kita tak ada masalah pun kita nak ikut. Tapi kita kena tahu juga, orang kata kena ukur badan sendiri juga macam mana kita nak mampu ke tidak kita nak ikut sepenuhnya ataupun kita mengikut pada konsep yang dibuat ataupun pendekatan ataupun struktur pasukan tu sendiri. Adakah kita ikut ataupun tidak? Saya rasa bola sepak Malaysia kita kena lebih serius lagi untuk maju ke depan. Di mana kita kadang terlalu ikut pada keadaan ataupun terlalu ikutkan keadaan yang rasanya tak perlu ikut pun. Persaingan tak sihat saya rasa banyak berlaku kat kita. Jadi kita kena tengok balik lah. Sebab kemampuan setiap pasukan tu amat berbeza. Tapi tak salah kalau kita ikut cara jalan yang betul. Dalam bola sepak kita perlukan memang pembangunan, memang kita perlu. Bermakna bila you kena ada pembangunan, makna you kena turun padang, you kena lihat balik di bawah-bawah di setiap ruang yang ada di setiap negeri untuk macam mana you nak dapatkan balik pemain-pemain yang betul-betul berkualiti dalam industri bola sepak Malaysia ni. Saya rasa kita kekurangan kat situ. Bila kita lihat balik macam zaman-zaman dulu, bukan kita nak compare dulu dan sekarang tapi ada certain part yang dulu ada tak ada kat masa sekarang ni. Dan yang ada kat sekarang ni memang tak ada zaman dulu. Maksud saya daripada segi teknologi, kemudahan yang ada, saya rasa zaman sekarang dia terlalu banyak yang saya rasa terlalu memudahkan pemain sebenarnya untuk belajar ataupun nak improvekan diri sendiri. Tapi kenapa kita masih lagi tak berjaya untuk mendapat tempat yang lebih baik?
Okay. And what would you say, David? I mean, what would you think that Selangor will need to do in order to be competitive again, considering JDT has been the most dominant side and it's been a long time. It's been almost 10 years since Selangor last won the league title.
Yeah, I think, look, you're not going to be able to compete with JDT because they got the money, the financial, the Prince's part. So it's, for that, you won't be able to compete. So I think you've got to look at maybe developing players within your own Selangor Academy, and then getting really good coaches in to develop the players that a style you want to play. You have to identify about a system, how you want to play, and it goes through all the club, and then you have ready-made players from a younger age that, you know, so in the first team now, say you might have a centre half that you need, and you might need a right winger. So you look through your academy and you go, look, in 2 years' time, we'll have these players. So you might have to go and buy someone now for a stopgap for 2 years to these guys to come up and be part of that. That's not an easy solution, because you've got to give the players confidence and play a certain style you want to play, and get good coaches and house them in an academy, feed them well, pay them well. So there's a lot of structure to that, but that's better than going out getting big stars all the time and paying a lot of money when, you know, you haven't got the resources the club used to have. So I believe so. I'm a bit out of touch if they haven't got the resources, but I think that's the case now. And look to get your better players within Malaysia that you can actually, you know, I know a couple of years ago they had a few Indonesian players that they went and looked at and signed that were quite good. But there must be good players here, and we've got to just make sure they come to Selangor, because it's, you know, well, it was and is still in my mind the biggest club in Malaysia.
Okay, all right. And of course, you know, I mean, developing talent is one thing, but what about the fact that, you know, the bigger clubs end up poaching these talents? I mean, what can Selangor do to overcome that?
Well, I mean, the thing is that you look after their family, and you say to them, listen, you were going to be, and you gain a contract that when they come out of their academy, that they have a 2-year contract guaranteed, so that you actually mark the players from a young age. So, you know, so how far does their academy go down? Does it go down to under 12s or lower, or? And do you know what I mean? So if you go 12s, 14s, 16s, I don't know if that's the age groups they have, but in all those different age groups, you try and identify the best players to come through, and you try and reward them with contracts like they do in Europe. When a player comes through the academy system and they're about to sign professional contracts, then the club sign them on a 2-year contract. And then once they play for the club, then you build from there, you know. That's not easy, as I said, but and having a good scouting network with scouts that actually can identify good players within Malaysia and within Indonesia, and, you know, maybe Australia, because I know some, you know, there's some Australian boys that are half Malaysian, that half Australian, that could probably go up and play there, you know. So they've got to look everywhere they can, you know. It's like I said, it's not easy, but try and bring through from the youth of the club. That's, you know, and then obviously you've got the money still to buy the best players in the league that you can. And then obviously it's picking the coach through. You want the coach to have an eye for talent as well, who can pick young players through. So it's a real 3 or 4 different pronged attack, really. You know, so who's the coach at the minute at Selangor?
Currently, right now, it's what's his name? Come again? Satyanathan. Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
I imagine. Okay. All right.
Yep.
So you know, so hopefully he can bring some good players there from the academy through. I don't know how. And the hardest thing is having a bit of longevity with a club, right? So if you come in, a couple of bad results, they kick you out. So you've got to have a coach that can bring young players into the first team, and that's easy. That's not easier. It's easier said than done, for sure. I know, but that's where you've got to pick your talented coaches to pick the best young players and pick other players from other clubs. You know, the art of Klopp is that, you know, he goes and signs a player from a non-league, not a non-league, sort of a Austria league or a Swiss league, pays £8 million for them, and no one's heard of him really. So they go, well, wait, what's this player going? And then all of a sudden, within 6 months, he's a superstar. So it's not always buying the superstars that comes in and does the job. And I know they did that for me at the time. It was a little bit different era, but at the time, can you go and get good players at other clubs. There might be some players at Malacca. There might be some players down in Terengganu, that you can have a look. And it's not always the best players. You have to have a scout that can look at players within a team and think he would do really well at our club. And that's the scouts have got to have that idea to talk to the coach that way, So it's not easy, but it's having a good infrastructure, So you've either got to have that policy where a coach comes in and picks everything, all the players, or you have a strategy from the club that they want to build from within, and try and join them together at some point.
Okay. Dan Abang Shahril masih lagi ada role dengan pasukan Selangor kan? Buat masa sekarang?
Tak ada.
Oh, dah tak ada dah. Okay.
Saya tak ada terlibat apapun dalam Selangor lah.
Okay.
Dalam masa sama kita beraktif dalam negeri Selangor.
I see.
Yalah.
Dan okey lah, sebab sekarang ni kan kita dapat tahu bahawa Luqman Hakim, pemain daripada Selangor 2 kalau tak silap saya, yang baru saja pergi ke Eropah. Apakah perasaan abang lah bila dah tahu dah sekarang ni bahawa pemain Malaysia dah ada potensi nak pergi jauh sekarang, even ke luar negara?
Okey, saya beranggapan macam bila peluang Luqman Hakim bermain di luar, bagi saya kita tak boleh meletakkan 100% pada dia je, bebanan daripada dia. Kita boleh anggap macam Luqman adalah sebagai pendorong kepada pemain-pemain lain ataupun pembuka pintu untuk pemain lain untuk berani berhijrah keluar. Kita bukannya pemain-pemain sebelum ni bukannya tak ada, tapi mungkin orang kata ada masalah. Yalah, kita kadang bila duduk luar keselesaan kita tu tak sama dengan tempat sendiri.
Ya, betul.
Itulah yang maksud saya bila kita melihat sendiri Luqman begitu beranikan diri dia untuk bermain kat luar dengan sanggup tinggalkan semua yang ada di sini untuk di sana. Saya rasa itu satu dorongan lah untuk generasi yang di bawah dia, generasi akan datang. Kita kena ada pemain yang macam tu untuk pembuka jalan. Kalau tidak, kita sampai bila pun kita tak tahu macam mana peluang nak bermain di luar. Dan sekarang Sapawi pun akan bermain di luar. Jadi itu satu orang kata mendorong lah bagi kuatkan lagi semangat pemain yang ada untuk mencuba. Kan? Kalau you bagus betul-betul, you rasa you bagus, you nak kembangkan karier, you kena pergi. Kalau tidak, you masih di sini, dan dalam industri bola sepak kita sendiri pun ada masa kita boleh pergi, boleh duduk atas, ada masa kita boleh tenggelam. Jadi lebih baik peluang tu ada, kita teruskan dulu ke tempat yang lebih baik, dan akan datang you balik, mungkin you dah jadi somebody yang lebih baik kan untuk membantu yang lain.
Okay. Amin, any last question guys?
So how's Shahril? Is he working at Kuala Lumpur now? Yeah.
Yes, I stay in KL.
Oh, okay. Oh, good. Oh, good luck.
Oh, okay, coach. Thank you. Same to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so Abang Shahril, terima kasih kerana join kita punya show malam ni, and Datuk David as well, thank you for your time for joining us on this fantastic episode discussing about Selangor.
Yeah, no problems. My pleasure, and thanks for having me on.
Yeah, me too. Same, Datuk Michel, and also Datuk David Michel, and also Shahril Arsat. Thank you so much for joining our show, and we're really honored to be part of the.
Sama-sama. Dari saya pun sama juga. Terima kasih kerana percayakan untuk atas jemputan ni.
Okay.
Tapi nak just tanya satu soalan lah.
Boleh.
Zaman gemilangan Selangor tu bila boleh datang kembali balik?
Dia macam mana saya cakap, you kena ada orang yang betul-betul jujur lah untuk pimpin tim lah sebenarnya. Kita kena betul-betul passion tu kena ada, bukan orang selalu cakap pasal politik, ini politik. Kita perlukan politik dalam industri bola sepak juga, tapi politik yang macam mana kita nak bawa masuk. Kalau kita bawa masuk salah politik, maknanya memang kita sampai bila pun kita tak akan jaya lah sebenarnya. Kita kena clearkan benda ni. Industri bola sepak sebenarnya semua orang minat bola sepak dan semua orang nak involve dalam bola sepak. Tapi daripada segi apa yang you nak involve sebenarnya, you nak dekatkan diri dengan bola sepak untuk apa? Bola sepak bukan mudah. Setiap langkah penuh dengan maksud yang berbeza. Jadi kita kena pasti betul-betul orang yang faham bola sepak, yang tahu orang kata asam selok belok dia, dan pengalaman tu yang sebenarnya perlu, dari mana kita perlu dapat. Bagi saya, pengalaman dalam industri bola sepak semuanya adalah daripada bekas-bekas pemain. Mereka dah lalui bermacam-macam masalah, daripada segi kejayaan, daripada segi jatuhnya satu pasukan, jatuh you sebagai pemain, itu macam mana you dapat management yang bagus, management yang tak bagus. Ini memang nampak macam kita cakap direct, tapi itu yang berlaku. Sepanjang karier saya dalam bola sepak 15-16 tahun sebagai pemain profesional, saya dah jumpa bermacam-macam pengurusan. Jadi di situ saya rasa pengalaman itulah sebenarnya yang mengajar saya sendiri untuk mengenal pasti setiap individu yang nak terlibat dalam bola sepak. Kita boleh kenal daripada cara, daripada reaksi ataupun daripada cara macam mana dia nak buat. Kita dah tahu dah ke mana pasukan tu ataupun ke mana dia akan pergi. Sebab itu kita kena betul-betul bertindak untuk memasukkan sesiapa je dalam bola sepak ni. Jadi kat situlah kita boleh tahu sama ada bola tu sukses atau tidak. Kita sendiri pun dah tengok ada pengalaman di mana ditugas dalam media untuk jadikan satu tim tu satu tim yang bagus, nak bersaing, kononnya nak bersaing dengan JDT, tapi dalam masa sama yang datang tu kosong, tak ada apa-apa. Jadi dalam masa sama juga dia menaya berbagai orang, pemain, pengurusan yang sedia ada, lepas tu penyokong, benda ni dah berlaku. Digahkan awal tapi sebenarnya tak ada apa-apa. Sebab itu dalam bola sepak kita kena ada perancangan yang betul dan kita kena ada pembangunan yang betul daripada bawah. Lepas itu pentingnya development dalam bola sepak daripada untuk membentuk seorang pemain. Jadi kita tak perlu, bila betul development tu, betul lah kita dapat pemain yang betul ke atas.
Okay. Strong words there from Abang Shahril. Well, as for me, of course, bercakap dengan Abang Shahril ni dan also talking to Dr. David himself brings back a lot of memories lah, because that was a very interesting time to grow up and watching Malaysian football. I'm sure mereka-mereka yang bayar umur saya pun akan setuju bila cakap pasal nostalgia bola sepak Malaysia zaman tu. Memang best lah, memang best. Dan terima kasih Abang Shahril kerana sudi menjadi guest dekat kita punya podcast.
Minta maaf lah kalau ada kekurangan kat situ.
Tak apa. Abang, kita belajar antara satu sama lain lah. Okay. And of course, big thanks to Dr. David Mitchell. I think it's almost way past 12 now in Australia. Thank you for being a guest in our podcast.
Okay, my pleasure. No problems. Thanks, guys.
Okay. So,
Okay, Dato'.
So with that said, we will just end this episode and thank you. Goodbye for now.
Kecemerlangan jadi kenyataan. Merah kuning keberanian merebut segala halangan. Sekali melangkah buktikan kemampuan.